Greetings and welcome to week 6 unit 2 on instruction for metacognition. In the last unit we understood the instruction for understanding, and in this unit we are going to understand ways of instructing for metacognition. What you need to notice is that while we are talking about instruction for different things, we are not using all of them all the time. We have to plan in a particular instructional unit what particular method you want to use, or what are you focusing on, or what it needs to be focused on. Based on that you make decisions. So when you look at it in isolation, it looks a bit daunting or scary. So don't go by that. What we are presenting is all the possible things that can be looked at, and from there you are selecting methods and selecting small parts and making use of them together depending on the particular subject matter and also the kind of resources that you have, and also the nature of the students that you work with. Okay. Now, there are a lot of research has been done to identify flawed study habits that are incredibly popular. These are all popular. People think that they are good. I can do this, you can't do that kind of thing. But it has been established they are flawed study habits. What are they? Copying directly from the slides. If a teacher is projecting the slides and then you are copying it down, that's a bad study habit. There is no point, because you are focusing more on writing rather than what the teacher is presenting. Then skim reading articles. When you talk about articles, when you read articles, you skim read. You only just quickly glance through and skip some of the parts and keep doing that. You may do it initially to get a total picture, and then you cannot limit yourself to simply skim reading. Passive rereading of notes. So what happens? You note down. Let's say what the teacher presents on the board or through slides. You copy it down, and then you are rereading the same notes. And highlighting notes or handouts. Some notes is being given to you or handouts, and then you highlight some portions what you consider important. Saving slide shows without reading them. Yeah, teacher, if he is willing to share his slides, you store them. Yes, I have all the material with me. A shallow memorization, quickly, what is required for tomorrow to write in the test, you quickly memorize and keep it, which is something that is followed by many students. Commencing study shortly before a test. This is another standard practice. That is, just before the test you try to you commence your study. Tackling tasks without a moment to reflect. When something is given, you immediately get on to kind of whatever you remember at that time, you immediately start tackling the task. Studying with distractions or music. This many people even take feel proud about that. I want some music in the background for me to concentrate, which is totally wrong. Or any other distraction. Says unless I have some sound coming, or I can't focus onto it. People may say that. Studying when tired. When you are physically tired, if you are studying, that is not a good thing. Studying in single context and avoiding errors. You have to make some errors and learn from them. But if you completely avoid errors, then your learning will not be good either. So what happens is, they are all flawed study habits, and Another one, people talk about multitasking. That is, I can, while reading, I'll go and keep looking at your social media posts, or you go onto the internet and look at that, just read through emails and so on, and quickly come back. And people say, yes, I can multitask. But multitasking is a very most inefficient way of learning. Because every time you switch from one task to the other, the brain takes certain time to switch from one thing to the other. And if you keep on doing it many times in a given period, then obviously your learning will be limited by this. Okay, we don't need to be satisfied with just telling students what not to do. I can tell these are all the bad habits and leave it at that. We can also model and design a program of highly effective self-regulated studying, including the metacognitive beliefs and strategies. Because much of this comes under metacognitive strategy to avoid this kind of bad study habits. This is a reference. If you have a chance to look at this book, please take a look at it. This is dedicated to metacognition and study skills. Okay, to quickly recapitulate something about metacognition, some of the main cognitive activities, if you talk about cognition, if you want to you define through these processes: attention, memory, knowledge and beliefs, thinking, reasoning and understanding, perception of sensory information. If you take a book on cognitive psychology, they will tell you these are the basic cognitive processes. But in our courses here, we are looking at as a set of these sub-processes in the framework of Bloom's taxonomy. Metacognition involves on these processes from a high level. That is, these are happening, attention, memory, this is happening. For example, looking at why you are not able to pay attention. If you look at that kind of thing, that is metacognitive activity. Why am I not able to remember something for a long period? Why doesn't it stay with me? That means you are looking at it from a higher level. So, putting in other words, thinking about thinking, that is metacognition. Beliefs that we have about how memory works. We have some beliefs. This is how memory works. If I repeatedly read something, which you make actually students at primary and secondary school to keep on repeatedly reading something, you think by that you will be able to retain the information for a longer period of time. Paying attention to our own language use, that is also metacognition. Metacognition can be seen in terms of oversight of the learning process. I am learning something, but I am overseeing from above. How am I learning? What are the things that I am doing? How should I learn? What is the next step I need to do? If looking at that, that is metacognition. So metacognition is a part of the mind that focuses on what we are doing and why. It includes the essential strategies that play a role in learning. From the very specific techniques to more general ideas about how to learn, how to consolidate, how to focus, how to stop yourself from forgetting. Here, though you may not use the word metacognition, everybody has certain his own model, his own way of doing things. These are all metacognitive decisions have already been made intuitively by students. They may be flawed, but everybody makes these decisions. So many of these habits are not picked up by students, nor are they taught. The good practices are not picked up by students naturally. Okay, some people may pick up good ones by chance, but neither they are taught in the classroom. So even more high attaining students maintain flawed, inefficient approaches to learning. Though we say high performing students generally have better metacognition, and poor metacognition is a significant part of poor learning. That is true, but even high performing students may also have flawed and inefficient approaches to learning. That has been proven by research. Many will misunderstand learning, forget a lot, and fail to realize when their memories have been distorted. Okay, so even high performing students, even though they have better metacognition, but they may still carry many flawed approaches in their learning. If they can be made aware of them, and they will become much better learners. Okay. So everyday metacognition, as I said, everyone is involved in some kind of metacognition. Even if metacognition is not taught at all, some learners still pick up on and engage in strategies such as planning and reflection. After all, how do I prepare for my class test? Each one comes to some kind of a conclusion. Say, okay, 2 days before the test, I need to read this. That decision making is metacognition. When a student says, I am stuck, or this is hard, they are metacognitive statements. First, you are acknowledging to yourself, I don't seem to be knowing this. To be aware of that itself is metacognition. Okay? There are a lot of intuitive and implicit metacognition. The spontaneous metacognitive processes are not enough. Just this kind of spontaneous decision making is not enough. Everyone will have to be guided in their life about constantly being aware of what I know, what I do not know, and what is it that I need to do to improve my situation. Without guidance, the students are likely to harbor metacognitive illusions. One example is, you keep carrying, what can I do, I am not that good a student kind of thing. Like success is a matter of ability rather than skill. If you keep saying that, skill requires hard work, right? Practice. Whereas ability means I am inherently, if I think that I am inherently I have an ability to learn such abstract ideas, then I will not put effort. So you may carry this metacognitive illusion, which is not good. Now there are two words that we need to be also familiar with, especially as a teacher: performance and learning. Performance refers to the observable behavior or actions that a person demonstrates at a given moment. It is the actual execution of skills or knowledge in a specific context. If somebody is able to solve that particular problem because he remembers those steps and he has practiced it, and then he is able to do it in the test or examination, then he has performed. Okay? But learning refers to the relatively permanent change in knowledge or skills that occurs as a result of practice or experience. It is not directly observable but can be inferred from improved performance over time. So learning means it is, or let's say if you only look for performance, you may come to some conclusion, but still he has performed, you may give him a good grade as well, but in the long run he may not be able to either remember or perform similar tasks or perform tasks in a new situation. But whereas learning cannot be directly be measured, you can only observe it over a long period of time. And that is where you should differentiate between performance and learning. In performance is what a person does at a particular point of time, whereas learning is the underlying process that results in long-term improvement in ability. Okay, why it matters? True metacognition combines both knowledge and regulation. You must know what to do, that is knowledge, and then actually do it, that is regulation. Moving from passive recipient of information to an active, strategic and self-regulated learner. So, we have created a system where you are always made a passive recipient. You have a long lecture, 55-minute lecture, and it's one-way communication, and one doesn't have much opportunity to ask questions or respond to a question given by a teacher. But to move from that stage to an active, strategic and self-regulated learner, and that's not easy. Okay. Metacognition improves academic performance and problem solving skills, builds independence and confidence, fosters a habit of lifelong learning and self-improvement. For example, lifelong learning and self-improvement is one of the program outcomes. That is, program outcome 11 focuses on lifelong learning. So if you want to address lifelong learning, that particular PO, some element of metacognitive instruction should be part of at least some courses. If not all of some courses, it has to be part of it, which will facilitate a student to become a lifelong learner. Now let us look at metacognitive strategies for a different cognitive processes. For remember, you can use flashcards, that is, create physical or digital flashcards using one of these tools with a term on one side and its definition on the other. You keep using it periodically, and that will help in remembering something better. Or recitation, that is something all of you are familiar. Labeling, practice labeling diagrams, charts and or maps with the correct terminology. Take some picture related to that particular subject and then label it. By very process of labeling, you will be able to remember it better. Or listing, create a simple ordered or unordered list of key facts, steps or components. You create the list, not read a list given in the textbook. If you are able to create the list, that means if you remember the terms properly, then you will be able to create a list completely. And active recall and association. How do you recall? Quizzing. Actively test yourself without looking at your notes. This strengthens retrieval pathways. This is a technique that is used, that is, some tool can ask you questions and you respond to that. If you are able to respond, that means you have retained that information, you remember that information. Highlighting key terms, go through text and highlight only the essential vocabulary and definitions. Mind maps, create simple mind maps that show central concept with definitions and facts branching directly off that. So these are different methods of active recall. Coming to metacognitive strategies for understand, there are always three stages: before learning, during learning and after learning. So what are the things that you need to do to improve your metacognition? Before learning, planning for understanding, activate prior knowledge. That we have mentioned in the context of both Merrill's principles as well as Kolb's experiential learning. Set an intention. Ask, what is my goal? Is it just to memorize this, or do I need to be able to explain it to someone else? You go through that step. Predict content. Look at headings and keywords and ask, what do I think this section is going to be about? For example, when you look at the contents page of a textbook, you quickly run through and you focus on one chapter and the sections list. If you do, you will be able to predict the content a little bit in a crude way. Even that will be a good metacognitive approach. During learning, monitoring your understanding, the Feynman technique, what does it say? Pause periodically and ask, can I explain this concept in my own simple words without using jargon? Can I explain this? If you can't, you haven't understood it yet. So that is one method that you can follow. Summarize as you go. As you keep studying or you keep listening, you summarize by writing a few sentences. Generate examples. Some examples are presented by the teacher or given in the textbook. Can I create my own original example of this idea? How does it apply to my own experience? Compare and contrast. Actively ask, how is this concept similar to X? How is it different from Y? This builds network of knowledge. Okay? And after learning, evaluating your understanding. Have I understood something? Create concept map. That is one method. How one concept is related to the other, in what way, if you are able to create the concept map. Identify muddy points. Reflect and ask, what was the most confusing part of me and why? Or not of me, for me. That is, whatever that has been presented, what is it that I was not able to understand properly? Can I point that out? What specific information is still unclear? This pinpoints areas for review. If you can put it down on a piece of paper, my muddy points, then I will be able to go and spend some time to make it that self-clear. But if I cannot, I don't even point out that, then I don't know what to, where to focus, where do I pay more attention? I do not know. So these are the simple things that you can do. After the class you can write this, or during the class you can write this, or if you are doing it online also you can pause and kind of note it down. Now metacognitive strategies for the apply. Before applying planning the application, situate the knowledge. Ask yourself, where in the real world could I use this information? What kind of problem could this solve? So you are situating the knowledge. That is, you are given a small problem to solve, let us say, but where do such problems occur? In what context it makes sense? If you are able to contemplate on that, yes, that is situating the knowledge. Develop a plan. Ask, what are the exact steps I need to follow to implement this? What resources will I need? Anticipate challenge. Consider what potential problems might I face while trying to apply this. Some data may not be available, or I may not be able, might not have understood the concept clearly, or some steps in some calculations I may not remember. So anticipate challenges. During the application, you are monitoring the process. Self-correction as you work, ask, is my process working as expected? Am I just following steps, or do I understand what I am doing, why I am doing them? Okay, you keep monitoring yourself. That is metacognition. And connect theory to practice, continuously checking how is this practical step related to the abstract theory. Am I seeing the concept in action? Identify sticky points that we have already mentioned in the case of understand. Be aware of where you go, where you slow down. Ask which part of this procedure is the most difficult for me to execute and why. Then after application, evaluating the outcome, assess effectiveness, reflect how well did my solution work, what were the results of my application, and you consider the alternatives. Could I have used different method or theory? Would the outcome have been better or worse? Why? For example, if you are writing a program or coding, you follow one procedure, you got it. If you ask yourself, can I consider any other alternate way of doing it? Can that be better? If I ask such a question, then your metacognition will improve. Document learning. Conclude with, what did I learn from the act of doing that I did not understand from just reading. Now come to the next, analyze. Before analyzing, planning the dissection, because in analyze you are in some way dissecting or like differentiating, organizing, you require the dissection. Set the analytical goal, ask yourself, what is my purpose here? Am I looking for assumptions, causes, patterns, evidence, or attributions? Because analyze has three sub-processes and there are activities related to that. You are not doing all of them at the same time, but at a particular point, what is it that you are trying to focus on? Choose a framework, decide what method will I use to break this down. Will I use comparison chart or cause and effect diagram or an outline? Acknowledge bias. What are my own biases or assumptions about this topic? How can I ensure I am analyzing the material objectively? Okay. During analysis, monitoring the relationships, differentiate and connect. Constantly ask, how is this piece different from the others? How does it relate to the main idea or the whole structure? Question the structure. Challenge the material. Why is it organized this way? What is the function of this specific section? What is left unsaid? Search for evidence. As you identify a claim or argument, ask, what is the evidence supporting this? Is it fact, opinion, or inference? That is really what analysis is. After analysis, evaluating the structure, synthesize findings, ask, what is the most significant conclusion I can draw from my analysis? What is the big picture that the parts reveal? Okay, first thing is you are differentiating, you are looking at different parts of that, of a given problem, and then in that you are finding out what is important, what is not important, or what is more important, and then the next stage you are organizing that information in your own way. So that's what we mean. What is the big picture that you are trying to create? Critique the analysis. Reflect, could someone else analyze the same information and reach a different conclusion? Why did I miss anything important? Actually, if you are able to do this, you have really mastered analysis. That is, I come to a conclusion, then I say, just keep it aside, can I do this completely in a different way? Assess significance. Conclude with which components are the most critical to the overall message or function and why. Now we come to metacognitive strategies for evaluate. Before evaluating, planning the judgment, that is, before you start the activity with respect to a particular case, you have to establish the criteria. The most crucial first step, ask what specific criteria will I use to make my judgment. Are these criteria fair, relevant, and comprehensive? So criteria identification is the first step before actually evaluating. Identify standards. So sometimes you evaluate whether a particular thing meets a certain standard or not, which happens with many engineering or even otherwise in social science type of subjects as well. Is there an external standard, rubric, or a set of rules I should be using to guide my evaluation? If there are standards, it is easy if you have that. Check for bias. Honestly assess what are my personal feelings on this matter. How can I separate my opinion from an evidence-based evaluation? Because most of the times in a problem we do have our opinions. Can I note down my opinion and do I have evidence for it to hold that opinion? During evaluation, monitoring the argumentation, apply criteria consistently as you form your judgment. Check in, am I applying my criteria evenly to all parts of the work? When some work is presented to you, you may not pay the same, whatever rigor you are following, you may not apply that rigor at all points, at all stages of the problem. Or if you are evaluating a report, let us say, I may focus more on certain things and not focus on, less focus on the some other parts. That is not good evaluation, obviously. Weigh the evidence. Ask, is my argument based on strong, relevant evidence, or am I making unsubstantiated conclusions or claims? Am I considering the weight of counter evidence? This is one of the things that most at a research level students make. They make because they feel that they have solved big problems and they make unsubstantiated claims. And the role of the guide generally is to caution the student, saying that you cannot claim that thing because you don't have the required evidence for it. And the students generally feel a little disappointed or unsatisfied, saying that some credit is being taken away from them. Consider other perspectives. Challenge your thinking. What would be the counter argument to my position? Why would someone disagree with my evaluation? If you are able to, then you are considering others' perspectives. After evaluation, justify the confidence. How strong is my final justification? Could I defend it in a debate? Is my reasoning logical and clear? Self-critic. Step back and ask, what is the weakest point in my evaluation? If I had to argue against myself, what would I focus on? Reflect on the process. Did my personal bias influence the outcome despite my efforts? How has this evaluation clarified my own thinking? See, if you are, let's say you are given an assignment to write a report, even a 2-page, 3-page report on some topic, and then you have to evaluate yourself before submission. The teacher will anyway evaluate, but if a student can evaluate, first of all, if rubrics are given, they are the ones to be followed. Whether am I following, am I working within those rubrics, that framework that is provided by rubrics. And at each stage, am I expressing my opinion or coming to a conclusion based on evidence? So if you are able to look at all this after you write a report and evaluate yourself following this metacognitively, use this metacognitive strategy, you would be submitting a very good report. Okay, that is the best way to improve your performance. Now coming to create, before creating, planning for innovation, define the purpose and constraints. Ask what problem am I trying to solve, or what is the goal of my creation, what are the non-negotiable requirements. If you are able to go through that, somebody has presented to you a problem and there you have to just kind of sort out things. A plan for idea generation, decide on a strategy. How will I generate initial ideas? Brainstorming, mind mapping, free association, what resources can I draw inspiration from? Anticipate the process, ask what steps will I take to move from an idea to finished product? How will I structure my creative process? During creation, embrace flexibility. Regularly ask, is my original plan still the best path, or has a better idea emerged? Am I allowing for happy accidents or novel connections? Self-critique for originality. Check in, how is this new? Am I just modifying an existing idea, or am I truly synthesizing elements in an original way? Overcome creative blocks. If you get stuck, ask, what is the source of this block? Do I need more information, a different perspective, or just a break? What new approach can I try? See, all these steps are metacognitive steps. After creation, assess against goals. Does my final creation successfully meet the original purpose and all the requirements? In what ways does it succeed or fail? Seek feedback and reflect, and plan for iteration. That is, what is the most significant thing I learned from this creative process? What would be the very next step if I were to improve it? So, if you are able to go through these steps consciously, in multiple sub courses or multiple projects, if you are able to do, you would have vastly improved your metacognition. And once you are able to improve that, it becomes a lifelong asset for you. So what should teachers do? Teachers plan and conduct instruction at the level of instructional units, what we said, okay? Teachers use Merrill's principles of instruction, Kolb's experiential approach to instruction, problem-based approach to instruction, or project-based approach to instruction for an instructional unit. You are not using all of them in all cases. For a particular instructional unit, you choose one method, one technique, you can say. Teacher can include instructional activities that promote metacognition in any instructional method that you use. And in selected courses, as I said, you are not, you can pay attention to metacognition in every unit in all courses, but they will take plenty of time. So you selectively choose an instructional unit or in a particular subject and then say, how do I apply this? As long as you have trained students through few courses on metacognition, it starts becoming a part of their learning process itself without naming or exactly labeling every activity. They will do it naturally. The choice of metacognitive activities will depend on the cognitive processes involved. That's why we explain for each cognitive process what is the metacognitive approach. Okay. In the next unit, we'll look at to understand instruction for critical thinking. And thank you very much for your attention.